Hello, designers. I wanted to walk you through me going through the exercise that we find in the book about using arithmetic operators, just in case you're struggling with that a little bit to make it work. Here I am in my code pen. I went ahead and I used their HTML. I've got my own CSS to try to style it more for what I want to do with my own page. I hope you had fun with that. So over in my HTML, I've actually created IDs for those places where I'm going to insert the different money, right? The different variables, the initial site, the 1 month consulting, and the total. And so right now I have subtotal as my initial site, shipping as my 1 month consulting, and then of course total as the total. All right, so I'm actually going to change these so they match, what mine are. So I'm going to change my IDs. Notice that, of course, I have my dividers that give me the messages. Okay, and it says message number. So in my initial site, and then it has the money sign, then I have that span ID subtotal. So whatever I put in there, eventually what I'm trying to do is make the JavaScript change basically that and the non-breaking space to the number that I put in. A lot of times I'm going to pull it from another place, right? And it'll kind of be an automatic process. But suppose I'm, designing my own invoice and this is just how I feel it's the best way to do it. Well, then I'm going to use something like this. So anyways, I'm going to change it to site. And then I'm going to change the consulting one as well. I'm going to change shipping to consulting. One of the things with the syntax of JavaScript is that we want to keep it as obvious as possible. So I don't have to change that ID. Now I can get over and I can start declaring my variables in JavaScript, which are going to be these IDs. Because those are the places that I need something to happen. And in order for something to happen, I have to be able to have a variable that's going to shove something over there. Or in this case, maybe not shove is the right word, but it's going to write it. It's going to write it into the HTML so that it shows up. Okay, so my first variable is going to be the site. Okay, so my variable for site is going to be 120. Consulting is going to be 400 from I'm using the numbers from our actual assignment. This is just so that it's easy for me to grade, honestly. And it's consulting for me, shipping for others. So I'm going to use let instead of var. I would like us to use let, but a lot of stuff that we're going to find out there is still using var. And that's because just the most recent JavaScript is using let, but it does almost the same thing. There is a good discussion about it in our Slack channel if you want to check that out. So I'm not putting 520. I'm actually going to do this variable addition, site plus consulting. And this would be the same as concatenating if I had strings. Let's log it in the console. I'm opening up my console. I'm going to console.log, put parentheses, and then inside those parentheses, I'm going to call the total. There it is, 520. Yay. So I know that my operator is correct. Well, now we have to write it, right, to our actual page. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to declare more variables. And these variables are going to hold these methods and, which are kind of like functions. And this like variable with the method is an object. And so I want to declare this as a way to get the site ID, right? So I get it. And basically, it's almost like I'm bringing it in. I'm like bringing it into my script, okay, calling it. So I'm saying get element by ID. Now I use single quotation marks, and then I put my variable there. So that's calling the site. I don't know if you noticed when I was typing this out, I accidentally put by as a lowercase. So the next part of this is to make a method that's going to write that variable site, or it's going to call that variable site, and then it's going to write using that text content. So it brought it over to the HTML and wrote it, and there it is, 120. Okay, so here's my next one, consulting. Okay, so now I'm writing my get element by ID for consulting. Same thing as before, using the variable to declare a method. Method is going to write into, well, it's going to call the consulting ID, that divider class. And then now I'm going to make this consulting, consulting, write to my divider, text content, consulting. There we go. You can see it down there in my HTML. Now, I like to do a lot of copying and pasting in my code, but something that we have to worry about is not changing everything when we paste it. So be really cautious and double check as you're pasting. But I'm going to go ahead and do that, copy and paste. And then I know there's 3 places where I have consulting that I need to change. Total, total, and total as the text content. So I have used arithmetic operators to write into my HTML document. And that's a lot of what we're going to be doing until we get into the animation. Very simple stuff. Of course, there's a lot of syntax to understand, a lot of language to learn. It's like we are learning a totally new language, but I fully believe you can do it. One thing that I want to show you. Okay. So let me open a file in Atom. I want to show you how Atom text editor and other ones know the JavaScript language. So if I open a file and I save it as a JavaScript like this, operators.js, and now I start writing my code, I will have places where it actually suggests to me based on the potentials that I'm writing. So it's like, autocorrect or auto recommendation when you're writing emails and texts and things like that. So it doesn't really do anything with variable. Okay, but this is where it gets cool. Document doesn't really do anything there. Here it is. So when I am calling this method get element by ID, I actually have all 4 of the potentials that start with get. So there are 4 methods that I can call by class, by ID, by name, by tag name. So that's great. We haven't done, I think we've seen class, but we haven't done by name or by tag name. So that'll be interesting to find out what those do with the document object model and how they relate in there. So I can go ahead and arrow down, tab, and then it fills it all in for me. I don't even have to worry about the fact that I like to write by with a lowercase. And just put in my total. It thinks maybe I want the L total because I've done that before. But check this out. If I start typing in that L total, it recommends, hey, why don't you do this? L total. Say, okay, tab, writes it out, dot, text content. It doesn't know, it doesn't have recommendation for that. That's okay. But look at that again. It tells me I can choose total. So it knows, especially once you write in a word in the text editor, it recommends that word if you start writing it again. It's fantastic. So one way of doing all of this is, yeah, I'm going to ask you to submit things in CodePen, but totally just write it in a text editor. We're going to be using multiple tools, and we have to figure out what tool is going to help us the best. So text editor for initial writing of the code, console, browser console for testing the code, or CodePen. CodePen for actually like checking it out in a nice preview, and then submitting it, right, in CodePen. And remember, you got the HTML, the CSS, and JavaScript, so you can copy and paste between. It's just when you're copying and pasting from CodePen into like an actual text document, then you have to make sure that you have the right head and body tags and things like that, and link to the script files and all that good stuff. So I hope this has helped. I hope you are doing great. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Show up to the lab hour, all of that good stuff.